Cool. Awesome. No one's in here swagging as hard as me with my bow tie. See, that's okay. All right, because bow ties are cool. Anyways, I'm glad you guys are all here today. We're starting our series called Go. Like on the Monopoly board, go. So I want to ask you a question really. Anyone ever had one of those mornings where they just can't seem to get their day started? Like maybe, your alarm clock doesn't go off, so you get up late, you have to take a shower with no hot water, then you go downstairs and your little brother ate all your favorite cereal, you go to the fridge and someone left the empty carton of milk in the fridge, and then you finally get in your car and you get stuck by a train on the way to school, you're late 20 minutes to class. I'm talking about one of those days. One of those days where you're ready to give up an hour after you've woken up, right? No one, just me? I guess no one else had one of those days? A couple people? All right. Hable English? No? Okay. I've had one of those days before. I recently had one. Kevin, who's my roommate, and I, we woke up. We had just finished writing a paper last night, because that's what you do in college. Papers actually have expiration dates. That's why they have to be written the day before. No one understands that. So I woke up right after writing my paper, and we were running a little late, all right? I'll admit that. So we hopped in a car. After we packed all our stuff, we threw the stuff in the back of my car and put the key in the ignition. Now, there are many horrible things in the world, terrible things that will give you nightmares. But nothing will keep you up more than when you turn the key to your car and you hear a ch-ch-ch-ch-ch. I'm like, okay, this can't be happening. Not now. Okay, I must have did that for 5 times and my car would not start. Okay, that is terrifying, especially for a college student with no money, all right? That is horrifying. So we're already running late. My car doesn't work. So Kevin's like, okay, fine. We'll just take my truck. Now, there's a reason why we decided to take my car, because his truck isn't very reliable. So we take our bags out of my car, throw them in the back of his truck. We hop in the truck, and he finally gets it to turn over. We get 5 feet out of the parking lot into the first intersection, and it dies. The middle of the intersection, we're in this big red Ford truck, middle of this intersection, and so we're like, something wasn't going right for us. So he tried to turn it again and again. We were just staring at each other like, this cannot be happening today. And we just kept turning the key, nothing was happening. So I'm like, okay. So jump out of the car, it's 30-degree weather, put my hands on the back of this truck, they start going numb, and I start pushing it through this intersection. When we finally get it through the intersection, we park it off in a parking lot. We say, well, worry about that later, and we start walking back to the apartments. Fortunately, we didn't get very far. When we get back, the shuttle is there. Hate taking the shuttle because it takes 25 minutes to get to our academic center. But we were desperate. So we got on the shuttle. Someone spilled some ice. Awesome. We got on the shuttle. Pick up the ice. Come on, you're interrupting the story. Okay, we got on the shuttle. And we were sitting there. We finally could take a sigh of relief because this shuttle will get us to the academic center. If not a little late, we'll get to class. But then the shuttle was stopped by a train. We don't ever have trains. This was unimaginable. I couldn't even believe our luck. We finally got to class 30 minutes late, handed in our papers, and took a seat. And the day only just began. It was an awful morning. And we've all had mornings like that, where we just can't seem to go. We can't get it in gear. See, when we can't go, we are miserable. Because there's always something else to do. There's the next step in our plan. There's the next episode on TV. There's the next appointment in our calendar. There's the next day, the next assignment. There's always something we're going towards. And when we get stopped, when something impedes us from going, we get upset. It's because we were made to go. As humans, we are hardwired to keep moving forward. And that's why this is primal, rage builds up in us when someone stands in our way from going. When we talk about go, kind of talk about calling, right? Ricky left because he said he felt like he was called to another church, and I don't doubt him. When people talk to me and they ask you, well, why did you become a preacher or decide to become a preacher? I say, I felt called to do it. I felt called to go. But what does that mean? I even realize now I just say it because it's the easiest thing to say to get someone to stop talking to me about it. I was called. It's just a simple answer. But what does it really mean to be called? And more importantly, what does it mean if I'm called? I want to break that down today. The verse I have on your outline, if you want to look at that, we'll put it up on the screen. This is the verse we're talking about today. If you've been a Christian for any amount of time or anything like that, you know this verse pretty well. It's what's called the Great Commission. And it's a very key verse to our faith. It comes right out of Matthew 28, 18 through 20. Then let me set it up for you a little bit. What's going on here when this is about to start? What's going on? It's Jesus at this point. It's nearing the end of the book of Matthew. So Jesus has called his disciples. He's hung out with them on earth. He's died. He's resurrected. And now he's talking to them again before he leaves them to go back into heaven. This is the last thing he says to them. And it's very important. So Jesus came to them and said, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I've commanded you. And surely I'm with you always to the very end of the age. And then he's gone. And the disciples, the 11 of them, are just sitting staring at each other. I mean, that's pretty jarring. That's not an easy thing to do. But this is our calling. This wasn't only for the 11 disciples who were standing there. Remember, Judas ixed himself. This wasn't only for them. This was for all Christians everywhere. Jesus was telling everyone this. Every person who claims to know Christ. This is your calling. And that's scary, because that's big. That's big. So let me break it down for us today. What is a calling? On your outline, first thing, first verb in there, go. It's actually the shortest sentence in the English language. Go. What does it mean to go, though? Usually when I hear this at school, it's probably from a missionary or a missionary conference. They say, go into all nations. That means if you're not a missionary, you're going to hell. Or at least that's kind of how it sounds like. Now, if you want to be a missionary, that's great. That's awesome. I would be a terrible missionary, all right? I would show up, like that day, I would start drinking the water, and I would get really sick the next day, and I wouldn't understand what people are yelling at me about. It would be awful. I would make a terrible missionary. Now, that's why, fortunately, that's not what this means. You don't have to be a missionary. Let me kind of put a spin on this. I read a story once about a man who, he lived in a big city. Every morning, he would wake up and he would pray the same prayer. He would say, God, if it is in your will, if you would want me to tell someone today about Jesus, show me a sign. That's what he would pray every day. Not a bad prayer. Pretty good way to start your morning. Well, this one day, he went on the city bus. He usually traveled by bus. But this day, the bus was completely empty, except for him and the driver. As the bus waited there at the curb, a man walked in. This was a very large man, big muscle-bound dude who was covered in tattoos. He looked pretty scary. And he sat down right next to our friend. Out of a whole bus, he was that one crazy dude who sits next to you, all right? You know what I'm talking about. Let me act like you don't. So he's like, okay. He starts squirming in his seat a little bit, getting a little nervous. This scary guy is sitting next to me. He's just hoping that his stop comes up soon so he can get out. The bus starts taking off. And then all of a sudden, this guy starts wailing, just, oh, God, and just starts crying uncontrollably right next to this dude. He's just sitting here, and this big muscle-bound guy starts crying, and he's getting scared now, all right? He's like, oh, this guy's crying right next to me, okay? And he's just crying and sobbing, and eventually he hears him talking. He's like, I just don't get it. I don't understand. So much bad stuff is happening to me. I only wish there was some way to make it better. I only wish there was something I could do that could change my life. And he turns to the guy and is like, could you please help me? And the guy is a little shaken, but he feels led to pray. So he bows his head and he goes, God, if you want me to tell this person about Jesus, send me a sign. Now, as funny as that may be, I think we live our lives a lot like that. We take this Great Commission here, we read what it says, and then we go, well, until God calls me specifically to go to a country with GPS coordinates, he then sets me up in a house, gives me a list of people to talk to, food to eat, I guess I should just wait. But that's not how God works. Let me kind of tell you how this verse is in the Greek. Now, the New Testament was originally written in Greek. And in the Greek, it really says, as you are going unto all the nations. As you're going. See, we get so wrapped up in thinking that God is so weak and small and his plan is so fragile. If I don't just go to the exact place he needs me, it'll fall apart and the world is doomed. But God's huge, giant, and powerful. He can work with whatever you want to do. He doesn't care where you go. He just cares that you go. That's what it's about. Stop waiting to get started and get started now. Go. Now, the next point is the next verb in our Great Commission. Make disciples. Make disciples. This is actually the most important part of this verse. Many people focus on go into all nations, and they sign up to do a mission trip. But this is what it's all about. You can go wherever you want, but if you're not following this, you're missing out on the complete idea of the Great Commission. Now, making disciples isn't as easy as it sounds. Let me explain. Anyone going to college soon? Maybe you're going to join in the fall, or maybe a year or two thinking about college. You maybe looked at a couple people. All right, good. I've been in college for 3 years, and I want to share some tips with you to make sure that your transition into college is going to be as easy as you can make it. First and most importantly, college isn't all about getting a degree. That's when everyone goes in. They go in with the idea that I need to go in, study, get a degree. That's great, and that'll happen, hopefully. But it's more important that you turn into an adult. That's the biggest thing you can do at college, become a person. And let me tell you, some people in college are not adults, and they will graduate as children because they just don't get it. And then they will work with you, and you will work with children who are 30 years old. Hear all the adults? It's true. Now let me tell you, some of these children you may encounter. Hopefully they won't be your roommates. The first one is a person who thinks it is totally okay to walk around naked. You may doubt me. You may say that is totally insane, but I guarantee there will be some person in your dorm who thinks it's all right to share everything God gave him with the world. My advice, don't be that person. If you're sitting in here today thinking that that is okay, it is not. Keep your clothes on. I'm positive. Don't do it. And remember, I'm speaking from experience. You don't want to meet this person. Just don't be that person. The next thing is you'll meet people who have no idea how to handle money. That's because they haven't taken Financial Peace University. You may want to talk to Brandon and sign up for that. Anyways, they don't know how to handle money. And that's mainly because no one's told them how to. They have free reign over their own bank account, and they go and blow it however they please. I had a friend who came up to me, and I know he wasn't poor, all right? He just liked to spend his money a lot. He came up to me and he said, Robbie, I need help. I have a problem, okay? I need $50 really quick. And I wanted to help him out. He was my friend. I said, well, what do you need it for? He's like, I need to get a new tattoo so bad. I was like, well, I was expecting like phone bill or something or gas, but new tattoo isn't really high on my priority list. I think you will survive without getting a tattoo. But there are people who believe if I do not buy the next thing I see, I just cannot go on. Learn how to handle your money. You'll save yourself and other people a whole lot of trouble. Next, you'll meet a person who does not know how to clean up after themselves. Maybe you're in this room probably. Seriously, learn how to clean up after yourself. All right, you may be sliding along and your mom and your dad are picking up after you, and that's great, but they're not at school. And if you're rooming with someone, they will get really upset with you. It'll probably be me. If you're rooming with me, I will get really upset with you because it's happened. My freshman year, I had a roommate who just did not pick up anything. I don't know, if he ever did laundry. I don't understand. Maybe he went out and bought all of his clothes and wore them and then threw them on the floor, and that was it. You could walk into our room, and there was a line, an invisible line down the middle of the room. There was his side, and there was my side. And my side was all clean. Everything was picked up. Clothes were hanging up. My desk was all organized. And then there was his side. There were clothes everywhere. I don't even own that many clothes. He had them all over his floor. He had things in boxes. He had a microwave he never took out of the box. It was a disaster. I didn't even know he had a bed. I thought he just slept on this pile of clothes in the middle of the floor. It was gross, okay? And it smelled really, really bad. No lie. Dirty clothes smell really bad. Clean up. And the fourth thing, can't make this more important, go to class. All right? You may think that's stupid. Obviously, I got to go to class. And then you'll go there, and you'll realize, no one's going to wake me up in the morning. And you try to sleep later, and then you start missing class and realize, I don't actually have to go to class. And then you realize that you've been dropped from the class because you've never shown up. It happened to one of my roommates. Don't let it happen to you. You have to go to class if you're at school. That's why they have alarm clocks. Thank you. See, here's the thing. I don't really blame them. I don't blame them for not knowing any of that stuff. Well, maybe about being naked, you should know that, but I don't blame them for not knowing how to do that. They're not really adults yet. And they probably had never had someone sit down with them and tell them how to clean their room or tell them how to manage your money. No one told them how to do that. They just kind of were let out on the world to figure it out on their own. And we do the same thing with Christians. We'll be so excited, we'll come up to someone we know or even a complete stranger, and we'll go, dude, you've got to meet this Jesus guy, all right? He is phenomenal. He rocks my socks, okay? He is just insane, all right? You've got to come to church with me. And they're like, yeah, I will be there this Sunday. It'll be awesome. I have my party hat on. So they come here, they experience Jesus, they hear someone preach about him, and they accept Jesus in their life, and they're saved, and they feel so good. And then they go and get baptized, and dude, thank you so much for inviting me to church. I met Jesus. It was awesome. That is great. Bye. And we leave. And they're like, oh, okay, well, now what do I do? And that is why we have big, fat, spiritual babies. Seriously. No one's ever told them how to look like Christ. They told them who Christ is, but they never taught them. When you convert someone to Christianity, their spiritual health is your responsibility. You can't just leave them out in the cold after they meet Jesus. That is the worst thing you could do. Because not only are they not going to know who Jesus is, they're not going to know how to live like a Christian. And you see all these people who are like, oh, they're so hypocrites. Why are they so hypocritical? Because no one ever talked to them about who Jesus is after they met him. Maybe instead of leaving a friend high and dry after they've experienced Christ, talk to them. Pray with them. Teach them how to read their Bible. Disciple them. Because making converts is easy. Making disciples is hard. And that's what we're called to do. We're not called to go out into all nations and make people converts. We're told to disciple people. And the last thing we're told to do is to baptize people into God's family. Now, I don't want to intro this too much because this is going to be great. Anyone ever taken a family photo before, right? Just taking a family photo. Who's hated it while they were there? Yep. Hate family photos, right? Now, there are some truly awful family photos out there. I actually selected a few. Why don't we go ahead and view them up on the screen right now to laugh at all these poor suckers. Let's see the first one. We got, oh yes. At first, it doesn't look like anything's wrong. And then you look at that dude in the middle. Man, I thought my dad was a dummy. Oh, it's a joke. Right. Yeah. I'm glad they brought their pets, though. That was good. Let's see the next one. Wow. Well, someone snuck a gremlin in that photo. Okay. I like the stash, though, on the father. That's cool. Let's look at the next one. I don't know what exactly is going on with her hair. I think she may have stolen it from her husband there. I'm not sure what's going on. What about the next one? Oh, yeah. Check out that tat. Man, that is forever. I'm telling you what. That is Father of the Year right there. I mean, like a full back piece. All right, let's look at the last one. All right, this isn't the last one. That's how a lot of us feel on our first day of school. We have, yeah, that was me. All right, let's look at the final one. Yeah. Season's greetings from the hot tub time machine. Wow. That is bad. That's a mustache on that dude's lip. That's bad. I'm telling you what. Okay, that's enough of those. We can go back. Ugh. I'm telling you what, though. Like, the thing about family photos is you can look at that photo and realize just what's going on with that family. They could be smiling on the front and everything, but deep down inside, they could be really tore up. And let me be honest. The families that we're born into here on earth aren't exactly ideal. I'm being serious. A lot of us probably didn't grow up with both our parents. Some of us maybe grew up feeling neglected, left out. I mean, it'd be dumb to say that the families God gives us are perfect, because they're not. At least mine wasn't. I don't know why I got gypped. But the families that we're given on earth, they're all right maybe, but they're not perfect. And that's why we have a family with God. See, that's what people want more than a friend. It's family. Someone to be there for them when their cat dies. Someone that they can share like their lives with. Stuff like that. They want love. And sometimes their families don't supply enough of it. But that's what we're to do. We're supposed to go out into the world and love people. Be their family. Even if they don't know who Christ is. They're still our brothers and sisters. Because that's how God's family works. It's here to make up for the families that just don't cut it for us. Now, the final point in your outline is a pretty loaded statement. If I'm not with God or working with God, then I'm working against God. You got to get with the program. If you're not working towards fulfilling the Great Commission, then you're just dead weight. Remember, I told the story at the beginning of the sermon about Kevin and myself and trying to get to class. And we never gave up. We never gave up because we had to be there. Because we were burdened by it. We had to get to class. We have to turn in our paper. It has to be done. Or we may fail. See, I'm willing to wager that if you're not fulfilling the Great Commission, even after you've heard about it, if you're not fulfilling it, you just don't care. You're not burdened by it. See, Christians, we're called by that. And God burdens us with looking for the lost, helping a broken world. We're burdened to seek out those who no one else wants to look for. It's a burden. It weighs down on us. It presses in on our souls. And it breaks our hearts. And we'll stand up here and we'll raise our hands to God and surrender to Him. We'll fall on our knees and He'll place that burden on our lives and we'll go, nope. Because burden isn't fun. Burden's hard. Burden hurts. So are you going to surrender to God today and accept the burden? Are you going to care that there are people dying out in the world and going to hell? People who are your friends and your family? Yeah, it's going to get hard. That's why it's called a burden. I'm going to leave and the band's going to play a song. I want to invite you to come down here. Come down here and pray. Some of you do feel the burden. That's great. You're doing good. And you feel the burden and you're acting on it. But some of you could really care less because you don't feel the burden. And you can pray today for God to touch you and change your life and for God to place that burden on you. But it's got to take sacrifice. It's got to take submission to God and surrender to God. Because if you ask for the burden, you can't give it back. So today, if you need to ask for God to burden your soul, this is your moment.